Welcome to the Cover 2, episode 63, presented by Tigervision. I'm Patrick Neal with Grayson Mann. As always, we are here talking football. Now, it was Clemson's fall break this past week. As a result, neither of us really watched any football. We were off doing other things. So, we figured we're going to pivot a little bit on what we normally talk about. Normally, we talk about this past week's games. We're going to do a little half-season check-in, kind of some superlatives, I think. And I think hopefully it'll go well. We'll see. But
yeah, I'm excited. You know, fall break, I was up in the mountains, so I had only the service to watch the Patriots get blasted by the Raiders and lose another football game. So I decided, let's not talk about that for the third straight week. Let's do something else. And so here at Cover 2, we like to improvise. We like to change up the game a little bit every now and then. So here's what we have on deck today. We're going to talk about the best team and the worst team in our eyes. We're going to talk about who's been a big surprise, who's been a big disappointment, favorite plays and favorite moments, and, of course, we have to do the MVP talk, as always. So, Patrick, are you ready?
I am indeed ready.
Ready, Freddie. Where do you want to start? What catches your eye?
I mean, we can just go down the list like you said.
Okay.
Best team we've seen so far.
Okay.
What, you want me to go? I'll go.
I do.
I think it's the 49ers. I know they lost this past weekend. However, their team is very complete. They're complete pretty much everywhere across the board. They did have a ton of injuries kind of stack up as they were playing this past week, which may have contributed to why they lost. But they're complete everywhere. You know, Brock Purdy has been able to play very, very well. You know, there were questions going into the season on whether he was a starting quarterback or not. And I think he's, for the most part, proven those questions to be unnecessary. I think he's a starter. He's going to be the starter for San Francisco for a while, I think.
Yeah, I think San Francisco's the easy pick here. I think what they just ran into was a Cleveland Browns defense that they know they have to play at the best of their level because Deshaun Watson's out. And I don't know how long he's going to continue to be out for. And we're going to talk about Cleveland here in a bit. Just a little bit of a spoiler for you guys.
Okay.
But San Francisco, they got the best coach currently in the NFL in Kyle Shanahan. I know that's a hot take with Andy Reid out there, but I think, or not scratch that, best play caller in the NFL. Minced my words a little bit. But got guys like Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and then on defense they have so many stars at each level. They're going to have a hiccup every now and then. I think Brock Purdy was a little injured. I think Christian McCaffrey left the game early. So
Deebo Samuel, I think that hurt as
chalk
well.
it up to some injuries. I still think the San Francisco team is leaps and bounds better than everybody else in the NFC, and they've proved that already. I know Philly has got the same record, but I think arguably they had a worse loss on Sunday.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, 49ers, I think, are in a tier of their own. And then, I don't know. I think the Dolphins are probably the second best team.
Yeah, they were close. It's really tough for me because I think that it's that classic what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object, and I think that's kind of where we're headed if that would be a potential Super Bowl matchup. But, God, they're both fun to watch.
It would be a lot of fun. You know, Mike McDaniel has ties to Kyle Shanahan, of course. Great uniform matchup, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
If we were able to
Very
get it
clean.
in the Super Bowl. If they could both wear their retros, the Miami, the white retro with San Francisco wearing the red retro, that would be fantastic. Make that happen, please. But, yeah, the Dolphins, their offense has been fantastic. I think Jalen Ramsey is going to be coming back somewhat soon.
I think he's cleared after the Patriots game, from what I remember.
Okay. I saw him post something on X, now that it's called, which I think maybe is signaling that he may be close to coming back, but hopefully they get him back. So, you know, they add another piece to the defense. Yeah, but this offense is, you know, I think by far the most explosive offense in kind of a season where there haven't been as many explosives, it's felt like.
Yeah.
They're by far the most explosive offense.
Yeah, and so when you take these two together, if we're going to pair those as 1 and 2, I think that's a very easy answer to have. And they're coached by some of the more unique play callers in the NFL. McDaniel's a really fun listen, especially with Christian Wilkins aside from him on Mic'd Up with the NFL. But, yeah, I think those two are far beyond the best teams at the very moment. They present the fewest flaws. So, Patrick, what, in your eyes, is the worst team in football at this moment?
So, was trying to decide. I think I'm going to
Panthers.
go. I'm going to go with the only team who doesn't have a win yet, and it's the Panthers. I was trying to decide. I think it was between them and the Giants for me. But the Panthers, only team without a win. They have not looked great. You know, they don't really have many pieces on the offensive side of the ball. Bryce Young has looked the worst out of the first three QBs that were drafted. You know, when you have Adam Thielen, who is however old, ancient, having to basically be the only weapon in this offense who can do something.
Well, he's having a career year. But,
That's not great.
that's all that Bryce Young has, so he just
Yeah.
continuously throws it to 19.
I mean, Adam Thielen, yeah, he's been all right, but you don't want Adam Thielen as your only option in this offense. Defensively, they might be trading Brian Burns or something when they, had an opportunity with the Rams to, I believe it was 2 firsts and a second.
Yeah, it was a pretty high premium.
But now they're probably not going to get as much because he's closer to free agency. I don't really know where this team wants to go. Plus, if they've given up their first-round pick this year, and if they finish with the worst record in the NFL, they would have had the number 1 pick this year, which would look bad, especially trading up for Bryce Young. If he ends up not being great, I think Caleb Williams would have gone first last year. I think Drake May probably would have gone first last year, maybe.
Probably.
But regardless, giving up that first-round pick to have a QB that, it's still early, but at least right now doesn't look great. Trading up for that and then seeing the result of you could have had the first overall pick anyways, not great.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with you here with the Panthers. I mean, I remember there being so much excitement for this team in the offseason too, because the team last year in Carolina was so competitive, and they made this major splash to go for the number 1 overall pick. I think they finished 7-10 or 6-9, 6-11 on the year, something very respectable in terms of where they were as a franchise. And they come in, they haven't won a single game. Their defense, besides Brian Burns, there's just not a lot to look forward to. You don't have a lot of stars on this team. I think for Bryce Young, it's been a real struggle, not because of his play, but just because there's not much to work with around him. And so Frank Reich looks dejected. It just looks like a fan base in a franchise without a lot to go for. It feels like where the Broncos were last year, where they're falling apart. You put such a premium in to get this franchise quarterback, and it just hasn't worked out because the team around you isn't really want it to be. So the Panthers they are the only team without a win, and it's very clear why.
Yeah, and you could argue the best QB performance they've had all season was with Andy Dalton.
Yep, against Seattle.
So, I just don't really know. Like you're kind of saying, there just isn't a lot of excitement in Carolina right now.
Yeah. I mean, with other QBs like C.J. Stroud or Anthony Richardson, there's a lot of big playability. The team is also much better and much better coached too. So there's just something not going right in Carolina. And so I hope for Bryce Young's sake they can get it figured out, because was an electric player at Alabama, and there's a lot of potential there with him.
Yeah.
But moving down the list, Patrick, in our superlative special we have here at Cover 2, we're going to have our biggest surprises and biggest disappointments. So, Patrick, who has surprised you the most in this calendar year so far?
Actually, why don't you go first, because I have 2, and I want to see if you say this one of them.
Yeah.
And that way, if you say one of them,
we can snake
mention
order
the
it.
other.
All right, this is what we call a snake draft here back home, folks. So my biggest surprise is I have 2 teams as well. It's the Colts and the Texans.
Okay. I had the Texans down.
Okay, yeah. So we can just kind of pivot on the Texans here real quick. I mean, you obviously have to start with C.J. Stroud. And what my biggest thing was with him going into the NFL was that everything in Ohio State was perfect. I mean, you can watch the tape with him, and every big-time throw, it felt like he had maybe 6 or 7 seconds to hold onto the ball and really survey the field. So what I wanted to see, and we got a taste of it when he played Georgia in the semifinal, was what does he do when things are chaotic, when things are out of structure, not perfect. And he had to go to a Texans organization where I honestly thought they would be where Carolina is right now. Just a giant mess. And when you put DeMeco Ryans in, the defense has played really well. Will Anderson looks really good. This team could potentially sneak in for a wild card spot. I don't think that's crazy to say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the remaining schedule, they have the bye week this week.
Always beat the bye.
And so then they have Carolina, which I think is a win. Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Arizona,
Okay, that'd be-
Jacksonville, Denver, the Jets, Tennessee, Cleveland, Tennessee, Indianapolis.
They could win 9 games.
Yeah, I think they could win, maybe even double-digit games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've already beaten Jacksonville once.
Yeah, you beat them again. Maybe you get a tough win somewhere in like Cincinnati or, Jacksonville and Cincinnati are the 2 best teams on this list remaining. So, I think they might end up with a playoff spot potentially. Like you mentioned, C.J. Stroud has been fantastic. He's probably going to win Rookie of the Year. But you have that defense playing really well as well with Will Anderson. D'Amico Ryans has instilled a great culture, in Houston, and they're looking really, really promising. I think next year, even if they don't make the playoffs this year, I think next year a lot of people are going to be on this team as like, watch out for them. Kind of like how some people were with Jacksonville last year. I think they could be in a really, really good spot.
Yeah, they're so exciting, aren't they? And they're also a team where I think a lot of people might, for the rest of the year, might be caught a little off guard. And so you have a team that has this reputation of being an absolute mess, fired 2 head coaches in 2 straight years. I think D'Amico Ryans is like probably their 3rd or 4th coach in this decade alone. Like, it's pretty crazy how much dysfunction has aired within this organization. All it takes is just one guy.
Yeah.
How quickly things can turn around when you are bold with your draft picks. And they really took a premium to get Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. They wanted 2 cornerstones, and so far it's paid off in dividends.
Yeah. I want to hear you talk about the Colts, though. Why'd you put the Colts down?
So I wasn't really a big Anthony Richardson guy going into the draft. I thought it was a little bit. There's somewhere on this Cover 2 show where I was like, I just don't know. Like, it felt like they were comparing him to Josh Allen a little too much, where the mechanics for Allen really weren't there when he went in there, and he had to really work for it. So it's like, what is Richardson's worth ethic going to be? And wow, Richardson's exciting. And I know he's not going to be out for the rest of the year, but what really took me away with the Colts was them winning games without him, winning games with Gardner Minshew on the road against Baltimore, winning games like they did. I think it was they didn't beat Jacksonville, but they've been competitive in every single game they've played. And it's clear that they've really bought into what Shane Steichen is preaching. And so both teams are 3-3, not really where I thought they'd be through 6 games. So those 2 are my clear biggest surprises.
Gotcha. Yeah. Excuse me. Anyways, I always liked Anthony Richardson. I think he was going to do well. I thought Shane Steichen was one of the better head coaching hires this offseason. It's unfortunate that Anthony Richardson is going to be out the rest of the year, which is why I didn't really think about them as the biggest surprise, just because they're going to be without their future QB for the rest of the year, and just it's kind of like that's unfortunate. I think they're in a similar spot as the Texans. I want to see what happens next year with Anthony Richardson coming back from injury, see how they can add more weapons. They don't have a true X receiver. I don't think Alec Pierce has really worked out. Michael Pittman is a good receiver, but I don't know if he's a number 1. But the defense has been all right. I think they could be a really, really solid team as well. It's going to be a really crowded AFC. So
yeah, it looks to after 6 games reign true that this is going to be a tough out for anybody in the AFC.
I agree. But my second team that I had down was the Rams with Matthew Stafford.
Yes, thank you. All right, I'm glad that came out because I really wanted to talk about the Rams. So go ahead.
Yeah, Stafford has looked fantastic this season. He's looked like he did back in, let me do the math here, 2021.
Yeah,
2021, where they won the Super Bowl. But his elbow's back. He has all the arm strength that he had a few years ago. And he was getting a lot out of Puka Nacua, who has been, kind of out of nowhere, a fantastic receiver. Cooper Kupp's back now. They're winning games. This offense looks good. I thought they were going to struggle a lot this year. You couldn't really name I know we mentioned, you couldn't really name too many people on this roster besides, Matthew Stafford, the receivers.
I think we didn't even know who Puka Nacua was until about week 1 or 2 of the NFL season.
Yeah,
so.
I'd heard of him, a few times before, maybe watched 1 or 2 BYU games here or there. But, I think they've gotten a lot out of a bunch of young guys, especially on that defense. Kyron Williams has stepped up as kind of a bell cow running back. He's injured now for a few weeks, but yeah, they've gotten a lot out of their young guys with an older Matthew Stafford. You thought maybe Sean McVay might retire or step away for a little bit because you don't really know how much he wants to go through a rebuild, but they've looked solid.
I think someone made an argument, and I think I'd agree with this. This might be his best coaching job in his career because that 2021 team was absolutely stacked. A much younger team too, but in terms of they were at the right age where these are all very inexperienced young guys. You brought in guys like OBJ. They had just a bunch of Jalen Ramsey, for example, to be the lockdown corner. They had obviously brought in Matthew Stafford to be their guy. They had Andrew Whitworth at left tackle to really secure that offensive line. And so this has been a completely relooked team. They sold their soul out for the Super Bowl, had a little bit of an off year in 22. It looks like they're back to being where they should be, which is competing and fighting in each game. They're not getting blown out of the water.
And they'll have their first-round draft pick this year.
That's right.
Until they inevitably trade it away.
That's right.
But let's go to the biggest disappointment of the season. What do you got?
Okay, so this is a really interesting pick, but I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints at 3-3. Their offense ranks 24th out of all 32 offenses in the NFL. And I thought when you brought in Derek Carr, this was a division in the NFC South that, while it has been slightly better than I thought, it still feels like this is a division the Saints should be running away with. And they've really struggled out the gate through these first 6 games to get the offense going. I think their red zone offense is one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think the only really game they got over 30 points was against New England Patriots, and they're one of the worst teams in football, and that was partially because New England couldn't get out of their own way. So I don't think Derek Carr's really planned to be the quarterback that we thought he would be with a better New Orleans Saints team. I haven't been always high on Dennis Allen either. We talked about this, I think, a long time ago at Cover 2. But yeah, the Saints team, I think they should be much better than they are, and they're only sitting at 3-3. I think they could be in danger of missing the playoffs and maybe finishing third in this division.
So you thought it was like a runaway division, or not a runaway, but
I thought that they had enough pieces like Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara coming back after suspension, Michael Thomas, Chris Olave. Derek Carr finally had the pieces and the competent team around him, because the Raiders at some points could be a absolute cratering disaster. So you thought, okay, he's going to a competent organization that knows how to win. They should be 4-2, 5-2, or maybe if they were 3-3, but we're putting up points and we're being a little more efficient.
Okay. See, I always thought this entire division was up for grabs, and how I thought the Falcons were going to do really well. They're still 3-3, and I thought about putting down Desmond Ridder as the biggest disappointment just for me because I wanted the Falcons to be better. However, I don't know. I never felt like it was going to be a runaway division. I thought the Saints could be solid. I never thought they'd be, blowing teams out or anything. I thought I expected them to be kind of around this area, I feel like.
Oh, really? Maybe we're just having different expectations, but the Saints just haven't really been the team I thought they were. And so I guess that kind of classifies as disappointment.
Fair enough. My biggest disappointment is, you're not going to want to hear this, the Pats offense.
I knew it. But I can't disagree with you. I can't be like, oh, Patrick, you're wrong, and then try to defend that.
I mentioned this earlier to you in class, but I got the exact things down. Their last 33, all of their drives in the last 3 games have gone field goal, downs, fumble for touchdown, punt, interception for touchdown, punt, interception, punt, missed field goal, punt, interception for touchdown, missed field goal, punt, fumble, punt, interception, punt, turnover on downs, punt, turnover on downs, punt, field goal, interception, end of half, touchdown, punt, touchdown, safety.
What? I'm sorry, I plugged my ears in. I didn't want to hear that.
But, they brought in Bill O'Brien this offseason, and everybody thought it was going to, fix everything, from Joe Judge and Matt Patricia being the previous offensive coordinators. And after the first game, I think some of us were kind of like, oh, maybe it is fixed. But since that game, it has done the exact opposite. Bill Belichick has suffered his 2 worst losses in his entire career. There's just no real talent on this offense. And yeah, it's just a little unfortunate, I feel like.
They were my contender for worst team in the NFL. If it wasn't for Carolina, they'd be the easy pick. I think, because at least with Chicago, Justin Fields can make plays and move around, even if I don't think he's a great quarterback. He's still a fun quarterback to watch. This team is not fun to watch. They're very boring. And I think I mentioned this to you in class, that the CBS broadcast team was taking so many shots at New England. It was like, man, Ramondre Stevenson with the 15-yard run. Tony, did you know that's the longest run the Patriots have had all year? And you're sitting there like, man, how did it get to this? That's what I thought the offense would look like under Matt Patricia last year. They're scoring less points than they did with Beavis and Butthead running the offense. It is unbelievable how this season has gone, because you thought, okay, they drafted pretty well. We got Christian Gonzalez, a pretty solid lockdown corner. And then 4 games in, your 2 best defensive players get hurt. Mac Jones' confidence is completely shot. And it appears he's not the guy anymore. Not just appears, it is fact.
I don't know if he ever was the guy, in my opinion, but we've talked about this so much.
We've tasseled and tussled on that.
We know the stances.
At least I'm finally come around to it.
Yeah.
I'm not blind to it.
Welcome to the dark side.
Welcome. I feel welcomed.
Yeah, but this Pats offense is just not good.
Makes me sad.
And yeah, want to see what happens with Belichick, but
that's a conversation for the off-season stuff.
Anyways, where do we want to go? Moments of the season, MVP.
Sure, let's do some moments. Let's start with you.
Excuse me. Moments of the season. My first thought was just watching Bijan Robinson play football. I heard this somewhere. I can't remember where I heard it, but he's first team all moves different, which I remember last year talking about how George Pickens. I had some take that like George Pickens may not be super good in his career, but he's gonna have one of the best highlight reels of all time. Mm-hmm. Kind of like how you could do like an NBA comparison would be like Michael Beasley or something. Just
sure.
Like, your favorite NFL player's favorite NFL player, for example. But Bijan Robinson is going to have one of the best highlight reels of this generation, I think, and he's going to be fantastic for multiple years. I mean, it's like his first touchdown he ever scored in the NFL was just absolutely absurd. Made like 3 guys miss. Walked into the end zone. It was fantastic. Watching him in Toy Story mode has been awesome.
That was pretty fun.
Watching him hit his little jukes on the Toy Story field was awesome. And yeah, it's just been a ton of fun to watch him play. So.
Oh, Bijan is a walking highlight reel. Every time I go down to see, so my brother's a big Falcons fan, and so he'll be in the basement at our parents' house watching on Sundays, and you just hear every like 20 minutes, Bijan, and something crazy's happened, so you just go on Twitter and you find it and you're like, oh wow, like that's sick. Like I don't really have any like good analysis kind of words for it because you don't have a real thing to describe it to. So he's been fun.
Yeah,
he really has.
And there was talks on like whether that was a good first round pick.
I'd say it was.
And I'm all for drafting guys that are just fun to watch.
Yeah, so. I mean Falcons are fun.
Yeah.
That was not the case last year.
Yeah. What moments did you have down?
Mine is the Brian Branch pick 6. It felt like the Lions, last year I was really high on them. At the end of the year, I thought, man, this is a team that can win the division. And clearly we've now seen that with hindsight and a 5-1. But that really felt like they're a rival to a national audience because you could have just checked out of their games because they started, I think, 1-7 last year.
Yep.
And they found a way to almost get into the playoffs after beating Green Bay. But it felt like playing the Super Bowl champions. It was the first game of the year. Everyone was really excited, and that was like their coming out party, really, as being like a premium team in the NFL. And that was just like a great way to kick off the year, I think.
Yep, and now they're 5-1.
Yeah.
Sitting, tied for atop the NFC. And I think they're in a fantastic position. A fantastic position, not just to win their division, but to win the NFC and get to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. They're a fun team to watch, like you said. Their draft had a lot of criticism, I think, when it happened, but a lot of their guys have turned out to be studs. You mentioned Brian Branch. Jahmyr Gibbs hasn't been able to be used as much, but maybe that changes throughout the course of the season. Jack Campbell has been good, and who else am I forgetting? Sam Laporta. Yeah, Sam Laporta has been awesome.
Fantasy tight end number 1.
Yeah, so he's been awesome to watch as well, and has been a significant contributor for them. So, the Lions are fantastic. I also had Zach Wilson winning Week 1 after Aaron Rodgers goes down.
Yes, that was crazy.
I thought about picking that. I also saw a conspiracy theory that Aaron Rodgers didn't actually tear his Achilles, just injured it. And so when he comes back and leads the team to the playoffs and then wins the Super Bowl, it'll be an all-time story. But yeah, I had that down.
All for conspiracy theories here.
I also had Nathaniel Hackett beating Sean Payton, just because
That was pretty cool. A lot of Jets moments this year.
Yeah.
I had one, and I know it just happened, but the Chargers plant fan was really funny on Monday night. I mean, that's going to be one that's probably joked about in the ESPYs or something, or the NFL honors at the end of the year, just because everyone knows that was probably a plant fan, just the way she was reacting. I'm all for the enthusiasm, but it was like that's like one of your conspiracies too. And then obviously this is gonna probably roll some eyeballs, but the Taylor Swift thing's been pretty fun. I know that people are annoyed by it.
I disagree.
I just think it's hilarious to kind of watch. I think that's just one of those things you're like, man, can't believe this is happening.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I just don't really care that much, and so I
don't like mind it. It just is like one of those things you just want to watch. It's like a car wreck that you can't like look away from.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I don't really care about the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce stuff, but that's just me.
How could you not?
Excuse me. Oh. Anyways, let's get the MVP.
To wrap things up,
Yeah. Who would be your MVP currently?
Tyreek Hill.
Oh,
Yes.
I had him down as well.
Oh, hey.
There we go. There we go.
So, I mean, what hasn't he done this year? I mean, he's been, I think he said before that he wanted to put up 2,000 yards. And he's well on pace to do that.
He's got 824 right now through 6 games.
That's crazy. And the backflip with the phone, I mean, I don't see any other quarterbacks doing that. I know Tua's been pretty amazing, but if Tyreek gets 2,000 yards and the Dolphins go 14-2 or something and have the best offense in the league, Tua's probably going to get the MVP award just because it's a quarterback award, but I would love to see Tyreek Hill get it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's what makes this entire offense go. You still have a bunch of speed everywhere else on the field, but he's averaging 19, almost 20 yards a catch right now, which is just absurd.
That's crazy.
And
It's like nearly 2 first downs every catch.
yeah, exactly. And he's just right now he's probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. He is just a difference maker. They've started using that short motion to get him in space, to get him off press, and it's just. Yeah, this offense is good, but with Tyreek Hill, it's another level.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Waddle's fantastic, and he could be probably a wide receiver. It's like the T. Higgins of the Dolphins, where like he could probably be a wide receiver 1 in most spots, but put those two together, and you're like, oh my! It's like we said at the beginning of the show. It's so much fun to watch, and Tyreek Hill is the gas that keeps this car going.
Yeah, and if this offense keeps up for the rest of the season, it's almost like that entire offense should just win like MVP. Like Mike McDaniel should win the MVP award, but he can't win it because he's a coach. So just give it to the best player on that offense, and that is Tyreek Hill.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I'd pay to watch Tyreek Hill in person. Like that's one of those players that, and also I wish it was my phone that was being used for that backflip. That is something that you'd have on your phone for generations.
Yeah, I mean it'd be pretty elite. Any other mentions of MVP? I put Lamar Jackson down. I think he's been really, really good.
I had a CMC.
Okay. Yeah.
I try to keep it non-quarterback because
Yeah.
I feel like that's too easy.
Yeah.
But he's also been electric, and like the Dolphins, CMC keeps that offense rolling. Hopefully he's healthy for the next week.
Yeah, but yeah, those are both 2 great options. But I'm having a brain fart. I guess that'll do it for this episode of The Cover too. Is there anything else you want to mention, talk about?
I think it goes without saying you should always subscribe to Tigervision. We have plenty of other fantastic shows in our catalog. We're really popping off this semester too, so if you want to jump on this bandwagon now, what a better time to do so than October 18th, year of our Lord 2023.
Yeah, like Grayson said, go do all of that kind of stuff. We want to thank Zach and Connor for producing as always, and we'll see y'all next time. Have a good one.